Question 1360. Given globalization has very nearly run its course, leaving multiculturalism in its wake, is the concept of recognizing individual race or color important in general or to you? The emphasis was wrong on the last bit of that.
I'm taking a diuretic break.
Let's say
Yeah.
in general. No,
Time that one right.
I'd say in general.
Yeah?
Globalization has almost ruined the world. You think about economics, even biodiversity, as well as multiculturalism. I mean, how many countries can you go to and say, hey, you don't feel like the foreign food, and go up and find any McDonald's or Burger King? It's also contributed to, loss of income, like fishing for, people in Africa and, smaller sort of countries and poorer folk. Like, they're not doing the numbers they did because you've got all these boats coming in and crossing over
I mean,
international
our
waters.
fishing industry has collapsed,
Yeah.
because we can't sell our fish anymore.
Yeah.
Mm.
Globalization's to blame for that.
To be fair, we can't really blame globalization for that. Thank you very much, DeRosa, for your $3.
It's
Your super
the
sticker.
it's the underlying cause, though. There's a bit more to it than specifics to it. I'd say with our fishing industry, but
Yeah, our market's in Europe.
Yeah.
But this is the thing with the fishing industry, even just worldwide. Like, any boats could get a flag for any different country that's allowed to fish in those waters. They might not even be, from Panama. It might be a Chinese vessel.
See, I mean, I was always thinking, you look at any I'm sure it's the same anywhere in the world, but like, you look at any town in the UK or whatever, and it's lost all its sort of like individual sort of quirkiness or whatever, and you go there and it's the same goddamn shops everywhere. If you want, you want a bakery, it's going to be a bloody Greg's. You've
got Sayers.
But you know what I'm getting at, which is kind of in a way why this is so hilarious when I do come across a certain fucking idiot racist or whatever that says you got these Polish stores right in town. They won't even serve English people. And I'm like, if you actually ever been in one, no. I said, well, I have. They will serve you, and it's great that you can get stuff in there that you can't get in a goddamn Tesco Express.
Yeah, exactly.
It's in that respect, it's a good thing.
Yeah. Uhan says, in general, not important. Only time it is relevant to bring it up is where to talk specifically about a topic. Mark says, I find it best not to differentiate race or sexuality. I treat people as equals. Never Again says, only in that I'd be meeting someone from another culture that I might learn something from them, as long as they don't teach hate.
It's not an equality issue that Mark's saying.
Culture and race are two different things, though, aren't they?
Yeah, it is. And we're losing cultures, like, to globalization.
Yeah.
Yes. Wild Eden says, can't we celebrate our diversity?
Well,
the problem is that some things are better.
Well, culture is an artificial construct.
I mean, I saw Wild Eden.
My head's gone blank.
So I saw Wild Eden saying chat earlier that they're Scottish or whatever. I mean, I don't know what it's like in Scotland nowadays, but like like you think one of the biggest global companies in the world, Coca-Cola, yet for like many years, and I don't know if it's still the case that Iron Brew outsold fucking Coca-Cola in Scotland.
Yeah, it did. Like, I mean, I'm all for the basic concepts of globalization, fueling economies and countries that need it, but what is being lost?
So my point is that where I meant that some things are better. You have a ballpoint pen.
Yeah.
Right. Traditionally, there were different writing implements used in different countries, and we now have a ballpoint pen. It is categorically better for general writing. That's not to say you can't have a nice pen of another sort.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that gets very quickly absorbed. You take that anywhere, that gets absorbed into a culture.
Yeah.
And there are lots of things where we are sharing something that is better. Now, I agree with you, we are losing individuality in terms of cultures. And that's a hard thing to preserve when you have a chunk of things that are better and a chunk of things that are irrelevant. But maintain identity.
I guess there's kind of a trade-off here. I think there's no.
It's cultural evolution, basically.
Yeah, there's not, but it is in a lot of sense there is definitely sort of something lost with like local cultures and so on that's happened with globalization, and that things have just become homogenized and very, so there's definitely something being lost. But obviously I take Dave's point with like his example there. There's a trade-off there. It's where you think it balances, I guess. But I think globalization on the whole I'm going to say is a pretty shite thing. But
I mean, you look at it the other way, okay? Basically, everything that is around a culture is mostly either put on to demonstrate a former culture or is related to work in some way. Right, and the difference between you having a JCB and you not. Do you basically say to people of other cultures, yeah, we're not going to share this idea, we're not going to sell you this thing because we don't want to ruin your culture?
And look, don't get me wrong, there are some aspects that I'd like to see eradicated, such as 12-year-olds getting married or genital mutilation of female. I'm not like, hey, preserve it all, because that
No.
and it has been due to globalization and even coming into those places that it's slowly but surely being eradicated.
Let's be honest.
I think our modern time has come down to a battle, or an effort, maybe is a better word, to seek that balance point between true multiculturalism and cultural appropriation.
But the problem you end up with, you have to decide. Society has to decide what is important to being that, and the problem is, very quickly, I've noticed that what a society is evaporates once you start putting a cost on it. I mean,
a cost on it?
Yes.
How do you mean that?
Well, for example, if you turn around and say that our society is going to be known for wearing purple dresses, everyone has to wear a purple dress, and purple dresses are more expensive than a plain dress.
Mm-hmm.
So the society over there just buys plain dresses, okay, and that's it, and we've got an extra cost on our society for having purple dresses. Or everyone must have a ridiculous flag in their front garden. Yeah, that sort of thing.
What country could you be thinking of there, Dave?
No clue.
But
we're starting to go that way.
Yeah. The things that come and go in a society are what the society decides should come and go.
But who decides? This is the problem.
The society does, as a mass.
I mean, do you know right now, in Western society, the idea of an engagement ring is something that is considered culturally relevant, culturally important to us. Okay, and this is something that was marketed at us. It's complete fabrication. But
that's
this
exactly what I was going to say. It's all about marketing. It's all about them wanting to sell their goods. It's like milk; it does a body good. Water. Got to drink so much water. And people see it as them trying to make people healthy, but that's not really what it is. They're just trying to sell their product. Yeah. They don't give a shit.
What do you think, Godless Granny?
Yeah, I'm really not sure on this one. Because I know some people that culture is really important to them. And I've seen areas of, particularly with adoption of children, where culture gets lost.
Yes, 100%.
And I think culture is important.
Yep.
But is it?
And a lot of times culture is related to ethnicity. Well, I shouldn't say a lot of times, it is, period. And I think we do need to hang on to heritage and culture. But on the other hand, societies change. Yeah. And cultures change, and we need to change with them. And I think it's a question of hanging on to tradition, but at the same time moving on as well.
Yeah. And I've gotten into that argument about your children being adopted from China and then not knowing anything about the culture or not how to speak their language. And I did get a little bit angry with one lady and called her a baby-starved wingnut. And I said it's not your kid's fault that you're a baby-starved wingnut and you want to change it and make it a little American when it's not.
There's no real. I think really the queen of this question. There's no real easy answer to this question. There is a trade-off there. Now, as I said, it's in some respects, it is important to respect traditions, but then sometimes what certain people view as traditions, you kind of think it would be better in the long run if they were gone. Certain people in your part of the world, Granny, view a certain flag as part of tradition.
Yep.
Are we not all in agreement that globalization is the cause?
Aren't all
not necessarily
something? Not all.
We have to define globalization.
A large number of traditions, just things that were fads at one point.
Yes. Can I just catch up on the chat before we finish up? Right. Wild Eden says, "I'm lucky where I live. We celebrate diversity. It's probably rare. We share and enrich each other." Ricardo says, "Backyard thinking. Backyard thinking is being lost." Purple says, "Why is it Dave rarely answers his own questions? But when he does, it sounds like he's pushing a specific agenda." Who wrote this question?
I wonder. I wonder who did.
Which agenda are you pushing, Dave?
I didn't write the question. Lone Wanderer did.
I did.
I didn't. I'm playing devil's advocate, to be honest.
Yeah. I'm very passionate about this subject.
Where my opinion lies is somewhere in the middle.
Dave, just say you're pushing the gay agenda. That's what we're supposed to do.
I just want people. I don't think we need to celebrate diversity as much as we need to just accept its reality.
Yes. I think you're kind of right about that. I actually think diversity is, in a lot of respects, could be considered completely irrelevant. It should be, because it should just be normal. As in, it is normal to be diverse.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason to pick up on it in any particular way.
And you can have both diversity and
your own
homologous culture at the same time. I mean, America. Everybody says, "Well, what's American culture?" Who the fuck knows?
Yeah.
But there is a distinct American culture of some sort. But at the same time, there is multiculturalism in America. Mm-hmm. And the only people that seem to have problems with it are those who believe that there should be only one culture in control.
Mm.
And fail to recognize that their culture is actually bits and pieces of all those others built into you.
Never Again says, "Now I think I've just entered an old Star Trek episode." Jeff says, "But there will still be local culture. Do you consider, for example, how some areas become hotspots for a particular thing for a time? New York's music scene. PA, what's PA?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania's writing. And it's completely right. And I'm going to skip over, and I'm going to hate myself for doing it because we're too far ahead. Do not read the chat. Ark says, "Sharing culture is a good thing. We learn to grow. But it's different if culture is forced on one another who don't choose it." I agree completely.
But people, that's fine. I think I agree with that. As long as people understand that accepting that something exists is not the same as having it forced upon you.
Yes. The problem is every case I've got example after example of where the opposites of everything we've said is true. And I don't know whether it applies. How do you define multiculturalism? Which I should have really started with.
Oh God,
that's a good question.
that could be a long question in itself. Though.
I know, you know what? Singapore is multiculturalism.
Multiculturalism is recognition of the fact that I can sit here in my little, say, 50-mile radius of Minnesota, and I can distinctly think of people who are from are Hmong, from people who are Native Americans.
Okay, so no. So you asked, are you saying
African Americans?
So are you saying multiculturalism?
Each of those cultures have their own little. I don't know. I don't like the word saying behaviors, but they have their own little traits or
but
customs.
Are you saying that it's the people's ability to travel? Is it movement of people that is multiculturalism?
No, not necessarily. I think it's that they have moved and they are in one area that they share a common place of existence and a governmental structure and that sort of thing, but that they are still, or at least recognize their history of culture and how it developed. I mean, people who are immigrants retain their home. There's no doubt about that. Their first generation beyond them, yeah, they are definitely tuned into a lot of the old world. Third generation, fourth generation, it begins to fade, and I think that's true in any place where immigration happens, not just America.
I think Chad, I think said an interesting little thing in the chat there about multiculturalism in Canada is often compared to a mosaic as opposed to like a melting pot, which he says American, but that's cultural melting pot is a phrase that gets bandied about a lot in the UK as well. Because this is what you'll get a lot of the time from like right wingers in the UK about like they don't like certain certain cultures don't assimilate into our own culture kind of thing, because I know you asked most British people what British culture is, they couldn't give you an answer on that, to be honest.
It was the same with American. There's not a meaningful culture now. It's been sold out over and over and repackaged and sold and repackaged and sold.
I mean,
It's
not
not
really.
something meaningful.
I think it just depends on who you ask, because like I was adopted.
If you don't have something cohesive that you can ask one side of your country what it means to be American and on the other side what it means, and you find common ground, then it's not really a culture.
Apple pie,
Sorry, go on.
Well, like I said, I was adopted at a young age, so like I got to see multiple different cultures from multiple different places, and so like I grew up in the everybody has to be Christian or you're an outcast type of thing. But I also like some of my friends, they were from Mexico, so they had a different type of culture with their with family related things. And then I grew up with people who, whose family just recently moved to the United States. So I got to see a bunch of different cultures and kind of develop my own.
I mean, it's like the old joke, isn't there, about like British culture? It's it's watching American TV shows whilst eating Indian or Chinese food and drinking German lager and driving Japanese cars.
Going to a picnic and singing Jerusalem while you eat cucumber sandwiches.
But the punchline is, but above anything else, being suspicious of all things foreign.
Yep.
When I think of British culture, I think of Shakespeare, Dickens, and the English pub.
Yep.
Our pubs. I mean, everything you would know about our pubs has changed completely in 20 years.
I know it's gone.
Since we've lost.
See, I think of Fagin, Haversham. Never mind.
I have a question before we move on.
British culture peaked at Motorhead. That was it.
Yeah.
Right. Are you against multiculturalism, Lone?
No, I'm not. Not at all. No.
I was intrigued as to whether or not that was the position you were taking.
Oh, no, not at all.
Which I thought was quite a dangerous position to take,
no.
Given that you're an immigrant.
Yes, and I'm also I'm also like mixed race, so But for me, the trouble's always been, where do I fit in? Because I don't know any Chinese. I hardly look Chinese. When I was little, I did look Chinese. If I get some baby pictures, you'd see it. And I never identified with the, native, Maori thing, which my mother's like, like a
I was
quarter.
gonna, I was gonna make the crack about that because it's
Well, you can make a crack
yeah,
about it.
it was
So it's
like,
like,
you know,
I've never felt like I
yeah,
fit in anywhere, so I've always embraced multiculturalism, but I've
yeah.
also seen the problems that are caused by globalization as a result of cultures dying out.
I mean, like, 'cause I was gonna, it wasn't really a crack. It was just an observation about that because you are from a country, in a sense that has got a tradition of multiculturalism, and the fact that in sports events or whatever, you can see these white athletes they're performing a haka very passionately as well.
Mm-hmm.
Very good example of a lot of a blend of cultures there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the things where you get. Oh, I'm not. I was going to go into cultural appropriation, but I'm not.
Isn't it amazing how absolutely frightening a good haka can be?
Yeah. This is the thing that I worry about because I mean, look, for all intents and purposes, I'm white, white skin. You don't see anything else. So whenever I want to maybe go to like some cultural center for like a Chinese festival, or maybe just look around at like the Lebanese stuff or something like that, like I feel like I shouldn't be there. And then when I was growing up, I was taught that it wasn't, you shouldn't be all like, proud to be white because that's racist. So like I've never felt like I fit in anywhere. So I've just spent my life taking little bits of different parts of me because I'm made up of like every friggin' thing. I did a DNA test, and just things that I liked and things I thought were interesting, but I don't really feel like I have any kind of one culture. And it's made me upset a little bit,
I'm not surprised. If you enjoyed that, please hit the thumbs up button. If you didn't, hit the thumbs down. If you think you've got a better answer or just want to tell us how wrong we are, leave a comment down below. Subscribe down here for new questions every day and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on our live shows. If you click over here, you'll see our latest upload. Over here, for what YouTube thinks you'll love the most. And finally, for a complete playlist of all our currently released questions, click here.